It's real talk.
From Leeds, give it up for Anna and the Leeds branch of Mothers Against Violence.
Hi! Right, I'm actually, I am Mothers Against Violence, but I'm dedicating a lot of my time to working against combating the video games that are desensitising our kids. We're currently taking on a big campaign to try and get mums on the same level and accept that they've been part responsible for letting the kids play the games. So I'm going to read you a poem that I've done about the games, and then Louise, who helps with the domestic violence issues that we face, is going to read you some facts about the violence and the things that come from the games. So I'm going to start with a poem. It's called Virtual Street Soldier. Women being murdered by children just for fun, beaten with a baseball bat, sat on fire, shot with a gun. Young man on a rampage, poison in his brain. Left to his own devices, he slowly goes insane. He beats up a policeman and sells drugs to a user. Drags peoples out of their cars, innocence lost, now an abuser. He'll fling you out of your car, then he'll run you down, turning people into skittles as he runs amok through the town. He stops to roll a joint after stabbing somebody in the back, pays for sex, sells drugs, beats the victims, then takes his money back. The city he is running, they call it liberty, but with this level of brainwashing, these youths will never be free. He will walk around oblivious, life hanging on a thread. It won't be long before this virtual street soldier will end up being dead. Together we must stop this and fight for what we know is right. In unison it is possible, so come and help us fight.
Ago, children played outside, running, swimming and riding their bikes to keep them occupied. Today's kids are far less physically active than their parents were, so care must be taken not to allow them to use video games as their main source of amusement. Video games are a multi-billion-pound industry and new titles are sold to teens every year with increasingly realistic graphics and sound effects. Many teens, especially boys, spend hours a day playing these games, and parents are often unaware of exactly what their kids are viewing. Parents are often concerned about the violent content of these games but unaware how dangerous they can be. But the risks for increasing aggressive behaviour are real. The latest brain research shows that violent games activate the anger centre of the teenage brain while dampening the brain's conscience. The initial surprise or disgust felt by a child when seeing violent images is gradually reduced over repeated viewings. This means that the images make less of an impact over time. Instead of finding them shocking and disturbing, kids soon experience these realistic scenes as amusing and entertaining, and sadly often the norm. As if that's not bad enough, the characters in these video games hardly ever receive negative consequences for their actions, nor do they show empathy or remorse for pain inflicted on their victims. One of the problems with this is that kids may find themselves having no compassion towards real incidents or victims of violence, and may also feel that they are invincible, which we all at Mothers Against Violence know is not the truth. Constant exposure to these types of images can also cause kids to view the world as more violent than it is, and also makes using violence the norm and the best way to solve conflicts. This can lead to the player misunderstanding threat, and kids can start to see others' intentions as more hostile or threatening than they actually are, because they've been conditioned to expect certain things. As a result, their responses to this threat may be more likely to turn situations violent rather than using more constructive and peaceful ways of resolving problems. Whatever happened to shaking hands and making up? The themes in video games also normalise unhealthy social relationships and interactions. Gang violence is glorified, and men solve conflicts through fighting to establish their place on the social chain. Since teens are very concerned about their social status, they are especially vulnerable to this type of conditioning. Violence is also used to gain control over women, and sexual violence is common in some of the most popular games. Repeated playing and participation in these storylines for kids who are learning how to develop relationships can normalise this behaviour for both boys and girls, and can impact their expectations of each other. Parents need to be aware of the content of the games their kids are playing and use the video game rating system wisely. Parents should also encourage their young to find other forms of entertainment and fun outside the home, such as sports. They need to be taught about sportsmanship and not revenge. Our children need to learn what is socially acceptable and remain in the real world, not up in their bedrooms, locked in a virtual world that will only leave them recluse, depressed and overweight. At the end of the day, you cannot have a healthy body without first having a healthy mind.
It's real talk.